What is going on, Internet? It is Thursday night. It is a legendary week because you are seeing us twice in a week. 2 nights in a row, we have abandoned our wives and our social lives to come talk to you about stuff. It's pretty sweet. This entertainment is dead. I don't even know what episode we're on anymore. I
We
lost
don't do
count. And
episodes anymore.
oh yeah, we stopped because I can't count. I don't remember how this works. um, so with me, we've got the usual. Well, this is the A team. The B team did last night. So I've got Steve Givens right here.
I'm apparently part of the A and B team.
He's put a you're
Go
you're uh,
me.
you're the
I'm
Mr. C of both.
yeah, I'm
You're
just.
actually the glue that keeps us all together, Steve.
I am so. I feel so good when I talk to you guys. You just make me
Uh,
feel so great about myself.
we've got Randall reporting in from the world of newborn children. How are you, man?
I am tired but excited because I got some caffeine and I'm ready to go.
Yeah. And then we have a very special guest with us tonight, Mr. Ryan Lamb. He is the CEO, boss, overseeing overlord of Shadowforge Studios, correct?
Correct.
And they are working on a game that just went to the Kickstarter 2 days ago. What is the title of that game, sir?
It's called Blood and Snow.
So before we go too far in, we're actually going to run the trailer. He's going to kind of describe what you're seeing because audio is not being nice to us. And then we'll go in to let him talk more about his title and his Kickstarter. So, Steve, I'm moving to you. Go for it, sir.
All right.
And I'm going to find you the link to the stream while I do that.
Crossing fingers.
Tomer, you clicked on Steve.
Yes.
There it goes. So it's too bad that the audio doesn't come through. Thanks, Google Hangout. But we have basically we have this long opener that's supposed to kind of describe how open and broad this world is. I just wanted to give a sense of, like a good cinematic sense that this is a very, very
For they sing death with their blades. They kindle oblivion with their souls. They are the harbingers of sorrow. They are not.
oh.
You're back on, sir. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, sorry, I don't know where I was. I don't know where I was. I was like, whoa, I'm getting muted here.
We got the audio working, and then I don't know what happened. Steve, what'd you do? You broke it all.
I was trying to fix it, but I didn't mute them.
Oh, that's weird. Well, all
So
right.
see if you can unmute Randy right now. But anyway, so it's showing some gameplay right now. So
Okay. Well, I think we just ended the gameplay part of it, and we're moving into the Blood and Snow titling. We are back to the main. So, from my perspective, sir, this looks like kind of a top-down dungeon crawler, RPG type feel. Give us more about it. What's the premise? What are we doing here?
Yeah, it's an open world top-down RPG. Well, I guess I would call it isometric, and so it's going to give you kind of that Diablo feel, except that the controls are more there. It's a Twitch. It's Twitch combat. So all of your controls are going to rely on skill and timing and aim instead of just point and click.
Okay.
And that was important to us because we just feel like the button masher the games where you're just sitting there smashing 1 through 5 or 1 through 8, and you know which spells are on cooldown at what time, and you're just basically going through the same cycle over and over again is getting old and kind of boring. And because we wanted to create more of a dynamic environment, we decided to go with this real-time physics-based combat instead.
Gotcha. Okay. And so your Kickstarter, like we said, launched 2 days ago. Your goal is $50,000.
Correct.
What are your different prize levels set out right now for Kickstarter?
Well, we have, let's see, we have the lowest tier is just a $10, which is not a, that's a non-reward, like, thank you tier. And then the first tier that you can actually pre-purchase the game with is $20 tier. And then we go to 25, we have a 35, a 45, 50, 60, 75, 100, 115, a few 140s, and 500, 1,000, 1,500, and 5,000. And each one of these tiers has some really cool rewards. We start getting into physical rewards like box copies and printed maps and printed printed art books. And in the 140 tiers are actually part of, they really play into part of our philosophy as a company, and that is we really want our fans to be involved in making the games that they're going to play and they're going to purchase. And so the 140 tiers are, the people that donate to those are going to be involved in some form of game development. So whichever tier they pick, they'll be able to help us design dungeons or
that's cool.
enemies or bosses and things like that.
Gotcha. Okay, and that's going to kind of move towards some of the different rewards. Involving this, what are some of your favorite games to play? I know you mentioned before you were playing Broforce, yeah, previously. So
yeah,
Broforce.
Broforce is like my go-to casual game right now. But FTL was before that, and of course, I'm a big Skyrim guy. Let's see, I used to be a big MMO guy. Recently, I kind of came back to it because WildStar caught my attention.
Open beta this weekend.
Open beta, and that game's pretty impressive. The combat is pretty fun. They've got a soft targeting system going on that really makes it feel more real time.
I'm a big fan of it because it's actually quite challenging. It is not.
Yeah.
It is. It's good. I like it.
Yeah, I do too. But the classics too. I think my favorite game of all time is probably BioForge. You probably never heard of it, but it's kind of an obscure. It was one of the very first. What kind of game would I put that in? Like horror survival games, like Resident Evil. Yeah.
Okay. I'll be honest. It's been a long time since somebody's brought up a game I haven't heard of. I'm pretty impressed, sir. Well played, sir. Well played. So one of the big questions somebody wanted us to ask you, was actually Rich, who's on some of our other episodes, is one of the big things in your tiers you get. It seems like all the copies are, if I read it right, are mostly DRM free, correct?
Yes.
So he wanted to get, and this has nothing to do with your game, but he wanted to get your take on piracy since you're doing DRM-free copies of the game, and how you feel about the current argument. I know in the gaming industry especially is a big argument of, like, Gabe Newell, for example, piracy is a customer service problem, not a theft problem, things like that. So I guess Rich would like your take on that. That's a question I was asked to ask you tonight. So.
Well, I'm of the opinion that people are going to find a way to hack your game no matter what. And I want to provide the best experience for the people that actually want to play my game the right way. So anything that hampers them at the same time is not really that cool in my book. So we're just, even with DRM measures, people are finding ways to break into those games and do stuff with them. So I'm a libertarian at heart. So do what you want with the game, and
fair enough.
Hopefully enough people like it to buy it.
Gotcha.
Well, talking about gameplay real quick, I noticed you guys talk about how there are no classes at all, which is very different, It's outside the norm. And so you talk about on the Kickstarter how you guys have a flat ability tree that you can kind of customize. So can you give us some insight into what that tree has, what kind of different powers you get, that sort of thing?
Sure, yeah. Well, all the magic that is based in this game, we wanted to get away from that stereotypical elements-based magic and stuff like that. So all the magic in this game derives from these beings that are called the Spiri, and they're basically demons that created the world that you're playing in. And most of them left, like the most powerful ones. They did this weird ritual and sacrificed a bunch of their own, and they were able to transport themselves back away from Cyrn, and in doing so, they kind of spread their magic all over the world. And so the characters that you play as have one of those nascent Spiri attached to their soul. So they actually have this inner demon that they're fighting with, but this demon also gives them all this power. And so every single thing that you do, every ability that you choose, whether it's melee or ranged, or it's magic based, or like what you would typically think is magic based is all magic based, and it's all being augmented by that spirit soul inside of you. So basically, the way I break it down is that every single ability in the game is available to you from the very start of the game, and that's going to allow you to basically, you're going to be able to experiment a lot. You're gonna look at all those different abilities, and rather than leveling a tree to get to an ability that you want, you're going to pick the abilities that you like, and then you're going to level those abilities.
Oh, that's cool.
And then each ability has its own tree that has branching abilities, so you can change those abilities to suit your playstyle rather than having to choose the abilities that are already suited to your playstyle.
See, that's awesome, because I really hate in these type of games where they have a tree and I start playing and I pick an ability that I think's cool, starts out cool or whatever, but what I'm really trying to get is build up to that final thing that just looks amazing, and then I get there and I'm like, what the crap is this? And I can't go back. I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Like, it's the worst thing.
Or you're spending how much money to respec, right?
Right, and I'm like...
So, I mean, I've been playing a lot of Diablo 3 recently because of the expansion and stuff. So is it going to be that kind of similar thing where I have a skill, and in Diablo 3 where you can apply a rune to a specific skill to change its modifier, basically? But at any time, I can respec and reclass. Is that going to be something I can do?
Yeah, you're going to be able to respec, because we really want to encourage experimentation. And we're actually wanting to build in kind of like a battle arena, like a test arena.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Where you can take a max level character instead of just looking at it on a tree. Like a lot of MMOs have websites where you can click on the ability trees and see what kind of a
right.
you can make. Well, we want you to actually get in there and make a character at max level and experiment with those things before you commit that to your playable character.
Oh,
so.
Great.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we're experimenting with right now, and it's looking pretty good.
So out of the abilities you guys have done, what's your favorite one? Like, what's the one that you guys made it and it's just amazing?
Well, we have one. It's kind of being shown in the Kickstarter video. We have one that it shoots out these ghost tendrils, and it attaches those tendrils to a bunch of different characters that are in range, and then it basically sucks the life out of them. And then you can use that energy in any way. Like depending on how you branch that ability, you can use that energy to explode them, or you can use it to push them out and hit other enemies, or you can use that energy to heal people. So it really depends on how you play as to what that ability will do for you.
Very cool.
And for you talk about leveling and growing the abilities, are you guys looking right now at more of a proficiency-based leveling system where the more you use it, the further it grows, or is it more of a you kill somebody, you get experience, and that experience is assigning to the skill? What's that look like from an ability standpoint?
It's kind of a hybrid, actually. So in its current state, and this is it's subject to change a little bit because we're still prototyping. But in its current state, what happens is just like you said, as you use the ability, you start to level that ability up. And then more options, like more branching options, become available at different levels of that spell.
Okay.
Or ability. Yeah.
Okay, so as it grows in experience, you're going to start branching off into new pieces, but the more you use it, the more it grows. That sounds very interesting.
Yeah, so even if you don't branch off, if you don't build it more, you're going to build damage in that spell no matter what if you keep using it. So you won't be capped. Like if you go to level 2 of that spell and it gives you a choice of branches, even if you don't make that choice, it'll continue to level to 3, 4, 5, 6, and your base damage will continue to level.
That's cool.
Awesome.
Something I was reading that I liked is the loot system. How you can really take ownership of that weapon and level up that item and carry that item with you. So it seems like there's not necessarily going to be a benefit to getting an item at level 50 compared to the item you got at level 10 that you leveled those 50 levels. Is that right?
That's correct, because you can take any item in the game and basically break it apart and take those stats and place them into any other item that you want. So that sword that you got a long time ago that you really love, you can just keep building it and leveling it as you go.
That's awesome. So if I name my sword Thomas Killer, and can I give it to my friend? Can he rename it, or will it stay Thomas Killer forever?
Right now, That's an interesting question. We hadn't thought about that, but
don't let them rename it.
We're all about freedom, so I would rather that you be able to rename it. So we'll definitely
but
implement.
I want to give Tom a sword that says like the Shaver of Thomas or the Thomas Cheer or whatever.
Yeah.
And just he has to use it and he can't change it because Tom and his baby face. It's just so much fun.
It's so weird.
But it makes sense. You shouldn't accommodate the minority. You should accommodate the masses.
I would tell Tom
we're just dicks.
He has to pay me money or something.
Don't accommodate Steve Gibbons for anything, please.
One other question I have about the story. Sure. I mean, it sounds awesome just reading through, on the Kickstarter and everything. So did you help come up with the storyline and write the plot basically, or do you have someone else who does that?
Honestly, I've contributed a little bit, but our writer Devin Burnett has been working on this for years. It's kind of his baby, and he has it in an almost novel form. And we've actually talked about releasing, online book, like an online book and an online graphic novel to accompany the game, so that people can really get into the lore. Because Devin's really like Tolkien. He's written this huge, expansive lore to back all of this stuff, and it's really deep and interesting. So.
That'd be awesome, because when I play games, I'm definitely a story guy. Like, I love good gameplay. If the gameplay sucks, then I won't play the game. But if the story is just amazing, I can overlook little things that might bug me. And I know there's other people who aren't story-based driven, and so if there was that graphic novel or whatever out there to help me dive even further into the world, that would just be amazing.
How are you going to incorporate the story into the gameplay? Are you going to use audio logs or journals or things like that?
It's a combination, actually. There will be relics around the world that you can access the lore through, and actually that's part of one of the rewards is you'll be able to. There are companion pets that you can get who will actually sing you some of the legends when you get near those relics, and then even if you don't have that reward, you'll be able to read about those legends when you obtain the relic that's associated with it. And then also the main storyline is driven through a main quest line. So you can go run around just like any other open world game. You can run around and kill stuff all you want and explore caves and ignore the quest line if you want to. But the main quest line will take you through the story, which it's going to be a branching story. I don't know. The scope of that story is going to really depend on the resources that we have, because the more every little branch adds a lot of content that we have to build.
Right.
But we're trying to make it as robust as possible so that you can actually feel like you're altering the game world.
Yeah, I can't even imagine how difficult that is. Just with a game, like, how big do you want to make your game? Do you want to make your campaign last 20 hours? Do you want to make it last 50 hours? That's how do you overcome that struggle of deciding, what's the replay value, and what's the main story-driven part?
Just a lot of playing, because the temptation, and I think a lot of companies out there tend to make the mistake of deciding that they're going to make their game a certain length, a certain playable length, and then they throw in all this cheese, all this extra fluff that doesn't matter to extend the length of that game. Yeah. And that's exactly the opposite of what we want to do. So we haven't really sat down and said we want it to be 20 hours, we want it to be 50. We're just right now we're building it piece by piece and making sure that every piece of it is polished before we move on, because we would rather have a shorter, polished game than a big fluff piece of crap.
Yeah, I think that's really, really smart. Like, Skyrim kind of has that same philosophy of, the actual storyline, if you just go straight through the storyline of Skyrim, really isn't that long, but all the side stuff that you do makes the game so much longer, but it doesn't feel like this extra fluffy crap that's unneeded. Like, if you do the vampire storyline or the werewolf storyline, it adds a lot to the actual story, and it doesn't feel like you're doing extra stuff, and so I think that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And we think that's awesome too. And we also love when we love games and movies that kind of hint at really epic things, but they don't give you the whole story. So there's a lot of that stuff in our game where you'll kind of see hints of really, really cool stuff that you want to explore, and maybe we'll branch out on graphic novel or whatever and explain those things in more depth. But we have a lot of scenery in the game where you look at it and you're like, holy crap, what is this? I want to know more about this.
Be destroyed villages, and you'll be like, what happened?
Yeah,
I want to know.
Yeah, and we think gamers are smart enough that we don't need to spoon feed them that stuff. So we like to leave it to the imagination as much as possible.
And so something I noticed on the Kickstarter page as well. I mean, you're talking your world. I mean, we're looking at 20 kilometers by 20 kilometers
In its current state, yeah.
in its current state, right? I mean, and I'm assuming you're looking to expand on that. I mean, what from a developing standpoint, what does that developing process feel like for you right now? I mean, you've got to make 20 kilometers of environment.
Yeah. Uh,
How are you guys feeling?
yeah, considering that we have a really small team, it's a little overwhelming. But we've spent a lot of time in previs building all these assets, like stuff that you wouldn't think about, the props like rocks and trees and burnt logs and stuff like that. And we have a really extensive library of hundreds of those kinds of props. So now it's really a matter of we have an overmap that we know the big terrain, and so we've gone in there and we've sculpted the large terrain, and then we're going in basically grid by grid. We've divided it into little grids, and we're just going piece by piece in a line, and then up to the next line, and detailing each line as we go.
Cool. Now this is completely off cuff, and if don't take offense to it, but I'm very interested in this idea. So as you talk about building having this battle trainer essentially before, where you can go in and test different skill builds and different skill trees, do you see a possibility in the future of maybe making that a game mode of, hey, you know what, just go get a high-level mage, build something out, and battle each other? Is that something you could see for PvP in the future?
Actually, we have plans for something called Metal Mode.
Okay.
It's towards the bottom of the Kickstarter, and it's just that kind of thing. It's a competitive mode, and it stems from the days when my brother and I used to play Diablo, and we would just say, like, okay, dude, we got 4 hours, and we're doing nothing but playing Diablo, and if you die, you're out. You're done. And it was just like we'd just go hardcore until somebody died, and you couldn't go to town to sell gear. You had to use what you picked up. And so we were like, dude, let's put that in our game, and that's what became Metal Mode. So you're gonna basically do what you're talking about. You'll start out, and you'll just level through these side dungeons that explain more lore. And at the end of every level, there will be kind of a mini boss, and there's kind of a gambling aspect to it, because if you beat that boss, you can take the rewards, or you can turn the rewards back in to move on to the next level. And if you do that, then the rewards at the next tier are going to be much better.
Oh, okay.
But you won't get the rewards that you gave up in the gamble.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I guess that was a long answer to a short question. Sorry.
No, but it was a very good answer, and it actually made me more excited. So
on the Kickstarter, you talk about how you've been kind of doing game modding ever since they let you in, like, Warcraft 2, right?
Yeah.
And so was there just things that, like, they would let you do modding and then you would, like, try to do something but it just wouldn't work, and you were like, oh, if I created a game, this is how I would do it? And is that kind of what sparked you to want to make your own, or?
Oh, definitely. And people have asked me our overall inspiration for this game, but it's hard to pin it on any one thing, because just like you said, over the last 25 years that I've been playing video games, all of this stuff is congealed into one cool idea, And just like you said, I've written notes here and there when modding limitations have stopped me from doing what I wanted, and said, this needs to happen, and why aren't they doing this? And those have become some of the features that we're putting in this game.
Awesome. Steven, I believe you had a question, sir.
Yeah, so I got a lot of questions. First, I'll go to what Tom was touching on quickly, just like PvP. There going to be any sort of player death, friendly fire, Magicka style, accidentally blow people up?
Right now, we don't have any plans for it, just because it really complicates the coding side of things, and so before we let the scope get out of our hands, and we.
Yeah, you want to focus on that narrative.
Yeah, I mean, if we made $500,000 on the Kickstarter campaign, then yeah, we would definitely start looking at PvP stuff.
Are there
plans? Thank you. Real quick, Randy, I gotta say this. Thank you for considering scope, because there's nothing that breaks my heart more than throwing money into a Kickstarter game, which I am kind of a sucker for all of them. I'm like, oh, Kickstarter, here's $50, and then 6 years later or 2 years later, I've got Double Fine going. We're almost there. We're almost there. I'm like, come on! So thank you for considering scope. I appreciate it.
No problem.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is that's really important to make sure you understand. Like, you don't want to do too much. I was just wondering if there's also plans, like, if Tom, Steve, and I are all playing together, and maybe I have some element that does something, can it be enhanced by someone else's, or is that one of those things also that you're waiting to see what kind of funds you get?
No, definitely, and I'm glad you brought that up because it's a big part of our combat system. We are building basically all of our melee is spring physics, and to explain that really quickly, all that means is that instead of normally a lot of games will have a pre-animated sequence, right? So
Hmm.
you might have been frustrated with the game in the past where you'll do a move and you can't stop it once you've started it, and it plays through no matter what, and that's frustrating to me because stuff's going on around you while you're still swinging your axe in this crazy move, and you can't do anything to stop it. Well, what spring physics allows us to do is rather than being just purely keyframe based like a pre-animated sequence, it's being controlled by code. And so when that, let's say you're swinging your axe, when it collides with something that is recognized as a physics object, it's going to stop right where it hits. So it interacts with everything interacts with the environment based on physics and wind and gravity and all the other things that we can throw in there. So while we don't have plans to make specific ways that your spells augment each other, they interact with each other naturally. So you're going to be able to build your own hybrid spell connections. So
Which is even cooler than like, oh, if we do this at the same time, this happens. But like having that happy accident of Tom doing some wind spell and me doing a fire spell, and it creates like this amazing.
Why do I have to be the wind guy?
Because you're full of hot air, Tom. Just
Ah.
relax. It's fine.
that was
So
fast. You pre-thought that one.
from a technical perspective, because every object is going to have its own piece of code and its own response, does that limit the amount of stuff you can have on the screen at one time? If you have 100 different objects that all have their own set ways to react to different things, is that going to limit what you can have there?
Well, it definitely affects performance, but we're going to great lengths to optimize things, and the it would be a bigger factor if we were doing like a first-person game or even a third-person game where you see more of the world at once. But because we're constraining that camera to kind of a top-down isometric view, you're limited to what's on the screen anyway, so that actually helps us a lot with optimization. So it's naturally culling out everything that's not on the camera within a radius of the player camera, and so we throw a lot of crap on there without really affecting performance.
Gotcha. So are there going to be any benefits to playing cooperative compared to playing solo, or the other way around?
Rewards go up. So the way we're building it right now, bad guys' abilities and their their HP and everything scales depending on how many people are in your party.
Mm-hmm.
So you can technically, we wanted to build it because we know a lot of people who just want a solo. They don't care about the co-op aspect, and it would frustrate them to have a dungeon that they couldn't defeat on their own. So while it will still be challenging to do things solo, you'll be able to do it. And then the more people that are added to your party, the more the monsters scale with you.
And do I benefit from killing those higher HP monsters?
You do. You'll have bigger XP rewards and better loot.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Okay. I'm out of questions.
I'm just excited.
I know, like this made me like, oh, well, is it out now? Can I go? Can I just play this?
I mean, if I've got tons of questions. I don't want to drag it out too long, but tell me a little bit more about Shadowforge. How many guys are in the company? I'm also really interested about the art style, where you guys got like ideas and references and stuff like that. I know you have novels for like storyline, but just looking at the art style, it's pretty dark. But I like some of these inside purple, green, flowy lights, very spectrally looking. So, like, what gave you ideas for that, or your artist?
I don't know, really. I can't tell you like any one source that those ideas came from. It's just kind of it's that kind of thing where you have a notepad by the side of your bed, and you wake up in a panic in the middle of the night with a cool idea, and you just write it down and fall back to sleep and wake up and wonder where it came from. So that's the kind of thing that we're dealing with. The three of us, we have Shadowforge is basically 3 guys, and then we have some artists that are helping us out, and we also have an awesome composer. I don't know if you guys listen to the music that's on the Kickstarter, but Austin is super epic, awesome composer. And wow, I kind of lost where I was going with this, but Yeah, it's just brainstorming. We get together and we think about the games that we like to play, and we think about the environments that we want to play in, and then we write down those ideas, and that goes to our concept guy, and our concept guy is named Daniel Taika, and he just does an awesome job translating that imagination into the awesome crap you're seeing.
That's cool. So everything kind of goes through him, so you can kind of get one theme, so you don't have like techno over here and medieval over here, and try to incorporate those together. You kind of have some sort of theme you focus around. That's cool.
Yeah, we basically have one guy doing characters and one guy doing our environment concepts, and then anybody who augments that has a kind of an art style a style guide that they stick to.
Awesome.
Where did the title Blood and Snow come from? Was that your writer? Did you say his name was Devin? Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's Devin.
Is it just like the contrast of red blood on snow? Do you have any idea?
Will you tell us?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a play on words because obviously there's violence in this game, and this world is a violent world. So that's the obvious reference that you get from Blood and Snow. And because this takes place in mostly it goes from kind of a Pacific Northwest rainforest type environment all the way up into a really Arctic and glacial environment. Most of it's in the snow, and the blood is also a play on words for bloodlines and the importance of the heritage of these characters that are playing out in this game. So because the Spiri created humanity, right? Those demon creatures created humanity. The original man and woman have a lot of innate magical power. They're basically immortal, and as people, as you go down the heredity, as they get farther away from that original man and woman, the bloodlines are kind of polluted, so to speak, and there's no magic anymore in humanity. So it's a play on that as well.
That's cool, and because titles are so crucial. I mean, one of my favorite shows on TV and then book series to read is the Game of Thrones series, and each of the titles for the books are so like Feast for Crows. I mean, there's so many different things you can use for that, and it just paints this imagery. And as soon as I heard Blood and Snow, the same thing came to my mind of, oh, that's a cool title. Like, oh.
I'm glad you like it.
My approval is all that really matters. Tom's doesn't.
No, not at all.
So let's say you hit your Kickstarter goal. When do you hope to have it done? Ready for?
We're targeting December 2015, but our plan is because we get frustrated too with long drawn out Kickstarters and people, companies that keep saying, okay, it's almost done, I'm sorry. We have content releases planned throughout that whole time, so we want to release like the customization module to everybody who backed it. So you'll be able to start making a character and making weapons and then saving them out so that when the game comes out you can just drop right into the game. And we also have plans to drop the that battle arena module as early as possible so people can start experimenting with combat. And that way even though it's going to take us we're projecting about 1.5 years to finish it, we're going to drop all those modules as soon as we finish them to a point that we want to share them with you guys.
Since they're polished and ready. That's awesome.
Yep.
Are you expecting to be able to release on PC and Mac at the same time, or is because it's different systems, is it going to take longer on the Mac or vice versa for the PC?
We don't expect there to be many problems. Unity, the Unity engine allows us pretty much universal cross-platform with a click of a button. So
cool.
Yeah.
I have a Mac, that's why I wonder. Things always get delayed on a Mac, and then Tom's over there like, hey, I'm playing SimCity. You suck. You can't play it.
They come out on time, just at lesser quality.
Oh,
awesome. I think that pretty much wraps what we had. Any final thoughts, final words for us, sir? Anything you want the good people of the internet to know about what you guys are working on?
I mean, we covered it. We covered it in pretty good depth beyond the scope of the Kickstarter. So I would just say check out the Kickstarter and know that we're like hardcore gamers and we're making the game that we want to play. So it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, and just from a gaming perspective, I'm assuming if you're watching this, you're probably a gamer. But if you're not, a game of this scope for $20, and I'm not saying you should only donate 20. I'm saying that is the bare minimum to play the game, is pretty crazy. I mean.
Well, and if you want to help build the game, donate a little bit more. Like, how awesome is that?
I'm just saying, if there turns out to be a $150 package that lets Tom write some of the lore, in which I can say that Randy and Steve are dicks, I might spend $150. That might happen on the internet.
Or like a little inside your character's beard and tell you what to do.
Yeah, I mean, if we do this into bidding war, where I can donate $151 and cross out everything he wants.
But really, you and I will go together and cancel out Tom's bid.
Oh my God! So I think that it's honestly, guys, like this is, in my opinion, crowdfunding is the future of gaming. Some of the coolest games I've played in the last 2 years have come out of crowdfunding. And it's the biggest thing we bitch about as gamers is generic, out of the box, recycled product. We're tired of Tony Hawk 15 and Call of Duty 35. This is a way to get away from that. And so go donate. It's kickstarter.com/project/south/Children of War, Blood and Snow. Just Google Kickstarter, Children of War, Blood
We'll
and Snow.
put the link in the YouTube description.
There'll be a link in the YouTube description for this. So, Ryan, thank you so much for jumping on so late tonight, man. I appreciate it.
Ryan,
No problem. It's my pleasure.
At Comic-Con as well, so people can come up and meet you and talk more about it with you there, or you guys?
Yeah, we really wanted to have a booth at the. I went to the Comic-Con just a few weeks ago, and we didn't get a booth in time, but yeah, we definitely have plans to get one for the fall.
Sweet.
Cool. So if they end up in there in the fall, guys, please go find them. Of course, come find the Entertainment is Dead guys. If you don't know where they are, we'll probably hunt Ryan down, so we'll point you to him. But your first thing after watching this, your first mission statement is to go give them money. So thanks for tuning in. Find us on Twitter at EID Podcast. Oh, that was my question. Ryan, are you guys on Twitter, and how do we find your stuff?
We are on Twitter, and it's Shadowforge LLC. Somebody got Shadowforge already, so.
Okay. I'm looking for you right now. So go find them on Twitter, Shadowforge LLC. They're going to give you game updates, keep you in the know. Of course, find us at EID Podcast. I'm at Thomas Winkley. Randy's at Ramcon 5000. Steve is at Steve Gives. One real quick last announcement. We are still doing the Extra Life thing, so I actually set up my donation team this week. So that is in full effect. We'll be doing the extralife.org stream with Mr. Givens, along with Big Shiny Robot and a few others. So check that out. And that's all I got. Anything from anybody else?
Have a good night, Internet.
Okay. Good night, Internet.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.